Okay, welcome to the video. SIG Guy here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to remove the manual safety in your SIG Sauer P365. Whether you bought a manual version and you want to convert it to a non-manual version, or maybe you're doing a trigger swap and you got to get the manual safety out of the way so you can complete that process. Well, then this video is for you. I'm going to show you how to take care of that today, so let's get started. As always, anytime we're working on any firearm, the first thing we want to do is make sure it's a clear and safe firearm. So we're going to always remove our magazine. We're going to lock our slide to the rear. We're going to physically and visually check, make sure there's no round in the chamber, no magazine. Check our breech face, look away. Do the same thing again. Chamber, magazine, breech face. This is a clear and safe firearm. Let's talk about tools really quick. Very simple process. All you're going to need is a flat tip screwdriver or maybe even a pick, something you can press in on the detent for a manual safety so we can rotate it and get that out of there. And then whatever you're using on your receiver pin here. I have pin removal tools on the website, sigguy.com, and this is made just for this right here. If you do have the 365 disassembly and reassembly kit, there is a different size alignment pin in there, but that'll work fine for this as well. And it does also come with a punch here and a 90-degree pick. Okay. Again, these are available on sigguy.com. So let's get this FCU out of here. So we're going to lock our slide to the rear. We're going to rotate our takedown lever. We're going to release our slide. Make sure you don't have any magazine in there because you're not going to be able to rotate your takedown lever if there's a magazine in there, okay? And then we're going to use our receiver pin removal tool, and we're going to press in on that. Now, if this is a brand new 365 rows, so sometimes these pins come out pretty difficult the first time, okay? So you might even have to put this like on an armorer's block and don't use a hammer on these here, but use a different punch and kind of give that some love to get that receiver pin out of there, okay? This receiver pin can come out either side. Left or right does not matter. It is the same on both sides, okay? So we're going to set that aside right there. We're going to lift up on the rear of our FCU, and then we're going to pull it up and out of our grip module just like that. Just so you know, all FCUs for the 365 are the same, okay? So whether we're talking about the OG 365 or the SAS that came out after that, or the XL that came out, or the X Macro, or the Rose now, they all use the same FCU, okay? The only difference that is possible is manual safety or non-manual safety, okay? So if you bought one without manual safety, you can still put in a manual safety. It still has the notches in here that these components go into to allow you to add a manual safety. All you need is the kit, which is your manual safety lever, the detent, and the detent spring. That's it, 3 pieces, and then you need a grip module with a notch in it, okay? Other than that, they're all the same, except this one here has got different colored controls, you know? Other than that, they're all the same, okay? That's one question I get asked all the time. So in order to remove this manual safety lever, we got to actually rotate it all the way up. It won't rotate up right now because of my takedown lever is in the down position. So we need to rotate this up so it'll be parallel with the FCU, and then we'll be able to move our manual safety lever. The reason why this won't move is because our takedown or our slide catch lever right here, this little portion on the bottom, is in a notch there on our takedown safety lever, and it's preventing the takedown safety lever from moving, which allows this to move. This is what prevents you from rotating this when there's a magazine installed, okay? Anyway, so we need to rotate this up. In order to rotate this up, we got to lift up on our slide catch. Okay, and the slide catch is only held in there by this one little bit of spring right in there. Okay, so to be very careful not to be pulling out on this as we're rotating it, because this will fall right out. Basically, where it pivots here on this end, I put my thumb over that, lift that up. You can see this is rotating already by itself, and then I rotate that around just like that. Okay, Still in there flush like it should be. If this does happen to fall out, no big deal. I got a video on my YouTube showing how to reinstall this as well as that safety lever. This is in the same video. Okay, so just refer to that video. Now that this is up like that, we can now rotate our manual safety all the way up. Okay, so that's what we need to do to get this detent out of there so we can remove the manual safety lever. In this next step, we're actually going to be removing the manual safety. So we got to depress our detent, which is this little piece right here. Okay, you can see there's two notches that it rides in. Right now it's in the bottom notch, and then there's a top notch. Okay, that gives you the clicking on your manual safety when it's on and off. So to get this out of there, we got to basically get it out of this bottom notch. And the only way to do that is push it in and then rotate our lever up so this whole piece can come down, and then that detent can come out of there. Okay, so that detent is under quite a bit of spring tension. Okay, so once it clears the protection of the notch that it's in, it can basically shoot right out of there. Okay, so you got to basically have your finger over it, or do this in a big Ziploc bag in case it does go flying. The bag will capture it. In the event that you do lose that detent or the spring, I do have replacement parts on SIGguy.com as well. So here's what the missile looks like. Okay, that's the detent itself. Here's your part number. This is the spring that's behind it. Okay, and there's your part number. And if you're adding a manual safety to your 365 and you need the lever, here's the black lever. And then there's the part number as well. Okay, all available on SIGguy.com. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in here so we can see this really quick. And I'm going to have my finger on my safety lever here so I can push up. And then this kind of sticks out just a little bit beyond that notch where you can actually see that. I can push it in with my screwdriver. Okay. So as I push in on this, I'm going to slowly rotate it just a little bit. Okay. Oops. Very close. See, I'm out of that notch now to where I can cover this with my thumb and rotate my lever up. Just like that. And I got my thumb over the detent there so it doesn't come flying out. And then we'll slowly relieve the pressure. Now we can carefully remove our detent. Okay. Taking note of that point on the end that goes in first. The spring goes around it, so that needs to go in first. We're going to set that aside over here. And then a lot of times the spring doesn't come out. There you go. Bang it on the desk a little bit so it starts coming out. And we can use a magnet. Kind of get it out that way just like that. We can set that aside as well. Now to remove our lever here, it's kind of like a Tetris. You got to kind of move it a certain way to get it out of there. Okay. So basically we need to move it to the side here. Okay. So if it's in like that, like it should be, that hole basically is in line with the chassis here, the hole where the detent goes. We basically need to pull it out a little bit like this. Okay. If it doesn't slide out like that, sometimes you got to pull the trigger. You got to hold the trigger to get this thing to move. Okay. So once it moves there, then what we're going to do is we're going to pull the trigger, which gets our trigger bar and stuff out of the way. See that? And it allows us to pull this up and out. Okay. It's got a little leg on it. You can see it right there. Covered in grease. But this little leg right here, it goes underneath this little cross member here. Okay. So that's why we got to it kind of goes in like this and goes underneath that cross member. So we got to kind of rotate that up and out to get it out of there. So as you can see, we're left with basically a non-manual safety version of the 365 FCU. Okay, so that was pretty easy. The hardest part of this whole process is deciding which grip you want to put this back into. So our original grip has the notch in here for the manual safety. So we basically want to get a grip without that notch. Okay, so we don't want stuff to fall inside that open hole. So this is a regular factory grip module. And then also when we're deciding which size grip. Okay, so this one here is a very small one, easy to conceal. but we're limited to our magazine capacity. It's not very much nowadays. Okay, so this is the smaller factory grip module. On SIGguy.com, we have all kinds of Wilson combat grip modules. So this is the black XL. Then we have a Coyote XL, and they've since added the green XL and the gray XL. Okay, so the green and gray are non-manual safety. They don't have them in manual safety yet. And then our Coyote and black come with and without manual safety. So you can see this one here has the manual safety notch in it. So if you want to just upgrade your existing one to a Wilson combat grip with the manual safety, you can do that. Or you can get this without that notch and put it on our non-manual safety FCU now. Okay. So these are all available on SIGguy.com for the 365, the XL, and the 320s. If you want another factory option on SIGguy.com, we also have the X Macro grips. Okay. So these grips, you can put them on any 365 you want. Okay. They fit no matter what. The only difference is the length of your rail here. Okay, so pay attention when ordering. Sometimes people like the shorter rail like that. I prefer the shorter rail where you can see a little bit of the dust cover. Some people like it full length like that. It all depends on if you're putting lights on it and or lasers or whatever you're going to be using. Okay, so we have the X Macro 17 round. Fits my hand great. It's more like a full size grip. So again, those are available on SIGguy.com, and the manual safety version ones are on the way. If you want to spend a little bit more money and get something aluminum, we have stuff like the Icarus grips. Okay, so this used to be my EDC grip, not this slide and comp, but just the grip, and they feel so good. I mean, your hands just mold right into them. Okay, so this is the Icarus Precision aluminum, and it's got the thumb rest on there. As you can see, you can get ambi. It's got both sides. You can get it without. You can get one side. You can get all different size grips. Okay, so that one's obviously a great option. And then my current EDC is the Mischief Machine aluminum grips. Okay, these ones feel so great too, and you can actually customize with different grip panels, and they supply an additional back strap. If you got bigger hands, you can put on the bigger one. If you got smaller hands, you can put on the smaller one. So that is my current EDC setup. Loving it. 12 round magazine in this one as well. Okay, so many different options to choose from. Okay, so for the purposes of this video, we're just gonna pop it right into this factory 365 grip module. Okay, then we take our receiver pin, put that in. If it goes in stiff, we're gonna use a little nylon tipped hammer here, armor's hammer, knock it until it's flush. Rotate our takedown lever down, get our slide on there, rotate that up. And there you go. We're left with a non-manual safety P365. For those of you that are just doing like a trigger swap, or maybe you disassembled this whole thing to clean it, and now we need to put our manual safety back in, I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So make sure our takedown lever is in this position here, not down. Okay. And then when we put this in there, obviously the detent side of our manual safety lever goes on the same side as our controls. Okay. So it's going to go in there just like this. There's a couple things we got to do here. It's like Tetris, like I said in the beginning. So we got this little leg here. Okay, this portion right here needs to go underneath this cross member right here. Okay, so it's got to go underneath there. So we're going to kind of put it down in there and curve it underneath that cross member. Okay, so what we need to do is there's kind of like 3 or 4 different things that need to happen here. So first, we're going to kind of put it to where that leg is underneath that cross member. And then we're going to pull our trigger to get our trigger bar out of the way and the sear and stuff like that. And then we're going to kind of move this around. Now, it's got to kind of be pulled towards this way. Okay, remember how it slid side to side? It's got to be pulled towards that way to get it to drop down in there. And then once it drops down in there like it did, we're going to release our trigger, and it'll go down in there all the way. Okay, so now because it is on, it's slid to this side, we can't rotate it. It rotates a little bit, but I can't rotate that so the lever goes down. In order to do that, we got to push it to the side. It's got to go that way, and then we can rotate it all the way. Okay, so we'll do that again for you. We're going to put the leg underneath the cross member. I'm kind of putting it down. It wants to go down there somewhat, but it can't go any more than that because the trigger, I'm not pulling on the trigger. So once we pull on the trigger, it'll drop down there even more. Okay? And then we're going to push it towards the right side so we can rotate it. Okay? Now that that's all in there, and that's where it needs to go, next we're going to put our D10 and our D10 spring in there. So next, we're going to install our D10 spring. This is basically the missile fuel. It's what propels that missile to come flying out of there. So we're going to insert that into the hole just like that. And then our D10, the portion with the little needle on it like that, goes in first. But we want to take a look at the other end here really quick. It's kind of beveled and angled. It's kind of got like a sharp edge on the one end. You see the sharp edge right here. Okay, when we put that in there, we wanted that to be basically horizontal to where it's the way it's installed into the channel here, okay? We don't want it to be vertical like that. We want it to be horizontal like that. And then when we're pushing in on with our flat tip, you don't want your flat tip to be parallel to that. You want it to be perpendicular to that, okay? Because that's going to make it easier to push that in. It's not going to want to slide off the top and slide off the bottom because it's sloped, okay? So I want to basically make that horizontal in the hole and then put our screwdriver tip perpendicular to that edge there, okay? So we're going to install this into here. We're going to situate everything here. And that will self-correct. If it's not 100% perfect when you're rotating it in there, it's going to eventually work its way like that anyway, okay? So I have my lever pushed all the way in. That way I can rotate this. And you can see right now my D10 is against that housing there. As I'm trying to rotate it, it's stopping it, okay? So then I'm going to take my screwdriver and I'm going to put it, like I said, perpendicular to that edge there, just like this. And I'm going to push in on that D10. Make sure your D10 is, in line with your housing here. If this is out like this, it's not going to rotate, okay? It's got to be pushed all the way in. Make sure that D10 is lined up with that housing. I'm going to push down on this with my finger as I press in on that D10. And then we'll get it to click into that first notch there. So you saw my screwdriver kind of slip off of there, but because I'm putting hard pressure down on this, it's basically wedged against the side of this housing here. So when my screwdriver slipped off, it didn't go flying out. Okay, but if it was in there loosely, that detent would have been gone. Okay, so it's in that first notch there. We'll just kind of exercise it back and forth here. And like I said, it'll self-correct itself into the right orientation there if you had it pretty close. Okay. All that we have left is to reinstall our FCU and reassemble the 365 basically, but I want to go over something here really quick regarding our receiver pin, okay? A lot of get questions all the time. People, it walks its way out. It doesn't stay in there. There's a little spring here that goes around the outside of the hole for the receiver pin. Okay, it kind of wraps around there, and then you can kind of see inside the hole there, the spring kind of goes straight along the bottom, okay? So that spring right there in the hole is what actually goes into the notch here on our receiver pin. There's a notch on each end, so that's why this can go in either way. Okay, but that spring resting inside that notch is what keeps this from going side to side. So sometimes when people disassemble and reassemble the 365, they accidentally lose this little spring. It comes out of there very easily, okay? So if that's the case and you're missing that spring, or even if the receiver pin's worn, I do sell a kit here, okay? It's got a brand new receiver pin in it, and it's got 2 springs somewhere inside here. There's one right there, and then the other one's underneath the pin there. But this comes with an extra spring in the kit, okay? If you want just the spring, I do sell that as well. Just the spring only comes with 1 in this kit, and there's the part number, okay? So all that stuff's available on sigguy.com as well. So we'll reinstall our FCU into our grip module. We'll put our pin in there. You'll hear it click. Here, click. That way we know we're situated there like we should be. Then we'll rotate our takedown lever down, reinstall everything, and then we are still unloaded, obviously. We're going to pull the trigger there. Check our reset real quick. Yep, that works fine. And then we'll check our manual safety. Make sure that works. There you go. Good to go. So you're going to want to do that before you return it to service, and then you want to go to the range and put some ammo through it. Make sure everything's 100% reliable before EDCing this pistol. So there you go. That's how you remove and actually reinstall the manual safety in the P365. I hope you found this video helpful. If you like this type of content, please subscribe to the channel down here. I really appreciate it. As always, thank you for watching and have a great day.